Did you know a former Russian spy was murdered with the most expensive poison on Earth, served in a simple cup of tea? In November 2006, Alexander Litvinenko met two men at a London hotel. He was a former KGB agent who had fled Russia and spent years exposing Putin's crimes. The meeting seemed normal. Tea was served. Litvinenko drank it and went home. 3 weeks later, he was dead. But this wasn't any ordinary poison. Litvinenko had been given polonium-210, a radioactive substance worth $10 million per gram. As he died, his hair fell out. His organs failed one by one. And everywhere he went, he left a trail of deadly radiation. Hotels, restaurants, airplanes, all contaminated. The poison was so rare, so expensive, that only a state could obtain it. This wasn't just murder. It was a message. Putin had reached across borders to kill a traitor with the world's most exotic weapon. The teacup that killed Litvinenko proved that nowhere was safe from the Kremlin's reach. Did you know the CIA once ran an assassination program that killed over 40,000 civilians? It was called Phoenix, and it turned murder into paperwork. Vietnam in 1967. The war wasn't going well, so America created something new, a systematic killing machine with quotas and statistics. CIA operatives worked with South Vietnamese forces to hunt suspected Viet Cong supporters. Anyone could be a target. A farmer who sold rice to the wrong buyer, a teacher whose students asked too many questions, a mother whose son joined the resistance. They built interrogation centers across the country. Torture became routine. Death squads operated under official orders. The program had monthly kill quotas. Provincial coordinators filed reports like corporate managers. 20 killed here, 50 there. Phoenix operatives conducted midnight raids, dragging people from their beds. Families woke to empty spaces and bloodstains. By 1971, over 40,000 people were dead. Thousands more had simply vanished. The program operated completely outside the rules of war. No trials, no evidence required, just names on lists, and bodies in unmarked graves. Phoenix proved something terrifying about human nature. Given the right system, anyone can become a killer. Did you know Australia's first woman sentenced to life without parole-prepared dinner for her victims' children using their father's flesh? In 2000, Catherine Knight did something so horrific, it changed Australian law forever. After stabbing her partner John Price 37 times, she methodically skinned his body like a butcher. She cooked his head in a pot, his buttocks in the oven, and then she set the dinner table. 2 plates, name tags for his children. When police arrived, they found vegetables arranged beside human flesh, a grotesque family meal waiting to be served. The crime scene was so disturbing that seasoned investigators vomited. Some required counseling. But this wasn't a sudden snap. Knight had terrorized Price for months. She'd threatened to kill him, to skin him. The night before, she told co-workers exactly what she planned to do. This was calculated, premeditated, evil in its purest form. Knight became the first Australian woman sentenced to never see freedom again, a case so extreme it proved some crimes are truly unforgivable. Did you know that in the 1920s, young women were literally glowing in their graves? The radium girls worked in watch factories, painting tiny numbers with radium paint. Their bosses told them the glowing substance was completely safe. To get sharp, precise lines, supervisors encouraged the women to lick their brushes. Some even painted their nails and teeth for fun parties. Grace Fryer was one of the first to get sick. Her jaw began to crumble. Then her bones started breaking for no reason. When she died, her body was so radioactive that it glowed through the coffin. More women started dying. Horrible deaths. Bones disintegrating. Tumors everywhere. The company knew radium was deadly. They had known for years. Male scientists wore protective gear while the girls were told to lick brushes. When families demanded answers, the company covered it up. They bribed doctors, destroyed evidence, let hundreds more women die. The survivors fought back in court for over a decade. Their case changed worker safety laws forever, but entire neighborhoods remain contaminated to this day. Did you know the same man who saved billions from starvation and also created the poison gas that killed millions? Fritz Haber was a genius. In 1908, he figured out how to pull nitrogen from the air and turn it into fertilizer. This discovery feeds half the people alive today. But when World War I started, Haber had a different idea for his chemistry skills. He created chlorine gas, the first chemical weapon used in modern warfare. On April 22, 1915, German troops released Haber's poison across the battlefield at Ypres. 5,000 soldiers died choking on their own blood in minutes. Haber called it a higher form of killing. His wife Clara begged him to stop. She was a chemist too. She knew what he was unleashing. When Haber refused, Clara took his service pistol and shot herself in their garden. Haber found her body the next morning. He left for the Eastern Front that same day to deploy more gas. Fritz Haber won the Nobel Prize in 1918 for feeding the world. The same brilliant mind that saved humanity also poisoned it. Did you know the U.S. military deliberately exposed 400,000 of its own soldiers to nuclear radiation? From 1945 to 1962, American troops were used as human test subjects in the Nevada desert. They were positioned just miles from atomic bomb detonations, told to watch the explosions with their bare eyes. Soldiers described feeling the heat burn through their closed eyelids. The flash was so bright it turned their bones into X-ray shadows. Minutes after each blast, they received orders to march directly toward the mushroom cloud. They dug foxholes in radioactive soil with their bare hands, breathed contaminated dust for hours. Military doctors told them radiation was completely harmless. But the government knew better. Classified medical records show cancer rates among these troops were 30 times higher than normal. Leukemia, bone cancer, thyroid tumors. For decades, the military denied any connection, destroyed medical files, refused treatment. Operation Desert Rock used American soldiers as lab rats to study radiation effects on human beings. The men who served their country became victims of their own government's twisted experiments. Most died never knowing why. Did you know one man personally killed more people than any individual in recorded history? His name was Vasily Blokhin, an NKVD executioner who murdered over 7,000 people with his own hands, Stalin's perfect killing machine. Blokhin designed soundproof execution chambers in Moscow's basement. He wore a leather butcher's apron and cap to avoid blood splatter. His most horrific assignment came in 1940. 7,000 Polish officers, 28 days, 1 bullet to the back of each head. He used a German Walther pistol. Stalin's plan was to blame the Nazis for what became known as the Katyn Forest Massacre. Blokhin had quotas, 250 executions per night. He worked methodically, efficiently. For 20 years, he was the Soviet Union's most reliable killer. But after Stalin died, everything changed. The new leadership cast him aside, stripped his rank, erased his achievements. The psychological toll finally broke him. Blokhin descended into madness and alcoholism. The man who had executed thousands died forgotten in a psychiatric ward. Stalin had created the perfect monster, then abandoned him to destroy himself. Did you know that 600,000 men volunteered for a suicide mission to save Europe? April 26, 1986. Reactor 4 at Chernobyl exploded. What came next was worse than the explosion itself. The Soviet government knew the truth. Without immediate action, a second explosion would render half of Europe uninhabitable for centuries. They needed volunteers, men who would work in radiation so intense it would kill them in days. 600,000 stepped forward. They called them liquidators. Some became human robots, clearing radioactive debris with their bare hands when machines melted from radiation. Pilots flew directly through radioactive clouds, dumping concrete onto the burning reactor core. 3 divers swam through contaminated water in complete darkness to prevent a steam explosion that would have been 10 times worse than Hiroshima. They all knew they were signing their own death warrants. Most died within weeks, skin falling off, internal organs shutting down. The government covered it up, called it pneumonia. But their sacrifice worked. They saved millions of lives. The liquidators of Chernobyl remain history's greatest act of collective heroism. November 18th, 1978, 918 people died in 11 minutes. It wasn't suicide, it was murder. Jim Jones had been planning this day for months. He called it revolutionary suicide and made his followers practice. They would drink what they thought was poison. Then Jones would tell them it was just a test. But on that final day in the jungles of Guyana, the flavor aid was real, laced with cyanide. Jones ordered the children to drink first. 276 kids, some as young as 1-year-old. Parents were forced to squirt poison into their babies' mouths with syringes. When people tried to run, armed guards shot them down. The audio recordings still exist. You can hear Jones commanding the deaths while children scream in the background. "Die with dignity," he kept saying. But there was nothing dignified about what happened at Jonestown. In one afternoon, a single man's manipulation created the largest loss of American civilian life until September 11th, all because 900 people trusted the wrong person. In 1939, a 5'3" Finnish farmer became the most feared man in the Soviet army. His name was Simo Häyhä, and in just 100 days, he would kill over 500 enemy soldiers. The Winter War had begun. Temperatures dropped to minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit. While massive Soviet forces invaded Finland, Häyhä grabbed his rifle and disappeared into the frozen wilderness. He used no scope, only iron sights. His camouflage was snow-packed around his small frame.
Every morning, he filled his mouth with snow so his breath wouldn't give away his position. Then he waited, motionless, for hours. The Soviets called him the White Death. They sent counter-sniper teams, artillery strikes. Nothing worked. He was invisible, a ghost in the snow who could kill from impossible distances in complete darkness. On his final day of combat, an explosive bullet shattered his jaw. But even that didn't kill him. Simo Häyhä survived the war and quietly returned to farming. One man, one rifle, 500 kills. The deadliest sniper in human history was just a farmer who refused to surrender.
Did you know the CIA protected one of the most sadistic Nazi war criminals for decades? Klaus Barbie tortured thousands in occupied France. They called him the Butcher of Lyon. He personally beat French resistance hero Jean Moulin to death with his bare hands. He sent 44 Jewish children straight to the gas chambers. Survivors described his torture chambers in vivid detail: electric shocks, savage beatings, psychological terror that broke minds before bodies. When the war ended, Barbie should have faced execution. Instead, American intelligence smuggled him to Bolivia. For 30 years, he lived as a respected businessman, training death squads by day, hosting dinner parties by night. He even helped hunt down Che Guevara. The man who tortured children was now a CIA asset. When Nazi hunters finally tracked him down in 1987, he showed zero remorse at trial. He smiled at survivors giving testimony. One victim's daughter asked him directly, "How could you murder innocent children?" His response, "I was following orders." The Butcher of Lyon died in prison, protected by America for 42 years. Did you know that in Stalin's Soviet Union, there was a prison camp so brutal that guards called it the place where souls freeze to death? Vorkuta, an Arctic coal mine where temperatures dropped to minus 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Over 200,000 prisoners died there. Political prisoners, intellectuals, anyone deemed an enemy of the state were shipped to this frozen wasteland in cattle cars. They worked 24-hour shifts mining coal with their bare hands. When prisoners collapsed from exhaustion, guards left them to freeze where they fell. Inmates ate sawdust mixed with water to survive. Some chewed leather from their boots. In 1953, desperate prisoners staged an uprising. Soviet forces crushed it with machine guns and tanks. Guards conducted medical experiments on living prisoners. Random executions happened daily. The camp's coal production was built on a foundation of human bones. When the Soviet Union collapsed, investigators found mass graves containing thousands of bodies. Former prisoners described Vorkuta as a systematic machine designed to break the human spirit. For decades, this frozen hell operated in complete secrecy. The world had no idea what was happening in the Arctic darkness. Did you know there's a lake in Russia where 1 hour of exposure guarantees death? Lake Karachay looks ordinary, crystal blue water surrounded by trees. But it's officially the most radioactive place on Earth. For decades, the Soviet Union secretly dumped nuclear waste directly into this lake. Plutonium, cesium, strontium. The radiation levels became 600 times higher than Chernobyl. Standing on the shore for just 60 minutes delivers a lethal dose. Your cells would start dying immediately, your DNA shredding apart. The Soviets tried to fix it. They poured concrete over the entire lake bed. The concrete cracked. The waste leaked into the groundwater. Animals in the area began showing horrific mutations. Birds fell from the sky. Local villagers developed cancers at impossible rates. The government denied everything, removed the lake from official maps, but the radiation kept spreading, seeping deeper into the earth. Today, Lake Karachay remains a hidden scar from the nuclear age, a place so toxic that even breathing the air above it can kill you, the deadliest lake on the planet. In 1953, the CIA began one of the most horrific programs in American history. They called it MK Ultra. For 20 years, they tortured thousands of innocent people without their knowledge. Mental patients received massive doses of LSD. Prisoners endured weeks of sensory deprivation. Even CIA employees became unwitting test subjects. Dr. Ewan Cameron pioneered psychic driving, a technique that completely erased patients' memories. Victims were reduced to vegetative states, unable to recognize their own families. The program spread across 80 institutions nationwide. Frank Olson, a CIA scientist, was secretly dosed with LSD. 9 days later, he jumped from a hotel window. His family believes he was murdered. When the program ended in 1973, the CIA destroyed nearly all evidence. Boxes of documents were shredded and burned, but some files survived. Congressional hearings in the 70s revealed the shocking truth. Senators listened in horror as survivors testified about their torture. The CIA had turned American citizens into human guinea pigs, all in the name of mind control. In 1972, a 6'9" giant walked into a police station and calmly confessed to 10 murders.
The officers didn't believe him at first. They knew Ed Kemper. He was their friend. For years, he'd hung out at their favorite bar, buying them drinks and swapping stories. They had no idea he was systematically hunting college students. Kemper had a 145 IQ. He studied police procedures like a textbook. He knew exactly how to avoid suspicion. His victims never saw it coming. A friendly giant offering rides to young women walking alone. But the killing started much earlier. At 15, he murdered his own grandparents, just to see what it felt like. Years later, he graduated to co-eds, then his own mother. He decapitated her while she slept, used her head for target practice. The next morning, he drove to that police station and turned himself in. Even today, FBI profilers study his confessions. His chilling insights into the mind of a killer remain unmatched. Some monsters hide in plain sight.